That rifle is way too much for you, sweetheart." The condescending words came from Rangemaster Thomas Fletcher as Staff Sergeant Stella Campbell examined the M24 sniper rifle at Fletcher's Advanced Shooting Complex outside Fort Benning, Georgia. At 31 years old, with platinum blonde hair and a tight braid and ice blue eyes that had tracked targets at distances exceeding 1,800 meters, Stella had taken weekend leave to practice at the civilian facility. Fletcher, a former National Guard supply soldier, looked at her designer athletic wear and immediately assumed she was a wealthy hobbyist. What Fletcher didn't know was that Stella Campbell had been Lieutenant General Marcus Reeves's personal security sniper for 5 years during the most dangerous special operations in modern military history, that she'd made 42 confirmed eliminations across 4 continents, and that she'd saved the general's life on 5 separate occasions. When General Reeves walked into Fletcher's facility 20 minutes later, Fletcher would discover that the most lethal person in the building was the quiet woman he'd dismissed, until a 3-star general saluted her and spoke words that would echo forever. She never missed when it mattered. The morning sun cut through Georgia humidity as Stella Campbell pulled into Fletcher's Advanced Shooting Complex. The facility advertised itself as "where serious shooters train," a claim that attracted military personnel from nearby Fort Benning, seeking practice time beyond their official requirements. Stella wore designer athletic wear and sunglasses, looking more like someone headed to a yoga class than a shooting range. She'd dressed casually specifically to avoid attention, wanting a quiet morning of practice before meeting General Reeves for their scheduled reunion. The facility was impressive. Outdoor ranges extending to 1,500 yards, climate-controlled indoor lanes, and rental equipment including military-grade precision rifles. Thomas Fletcher had built a profitable business, though his own military experience consisted of 6 years in the National Guard managing supply operations rather than conducting combat missions. When Stella entered and approached the equipment counter, Fletcher assessed her with a glance that made instant assumptions. "Good morning, ma'am," he said with professional courtesy that barely masked condescension. "First time at our facility? We have an excellent women's introductory class that starts—" "I reserved lane 3 for the outdoor 1,200-yard range," Stella interrupted politely. "I'd like to rent an M24. Fletcher's expression shifted to amused skepticism. "Ma'am, the M24 is a serious precision instrument. It's really not appropriate for beginners. The recoil can be quite uncomfortable for women, and shooting at 1,200 yards requires years of—" "I'm not a beginner. I have experience with the M24 system." "Experience?" Fletcher smiled indulgently. "Look, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but the M24 isn't something you just pick up. It requires extensive training, upper body strength, and frankly, most women find it overwhelming. Why don't I set you up with something more suitable? We have some nice .22 rifles that—" "I specifically want the M24 and the 1,200-yard lane," Stella said calmly. "I called yesterday and made a reservation." Fletcher sighed, clearly convinced he was about to watch an expensive rifle get mishandled by someone who had no business touching it. "Your money, your bruised shoulder, but don't say I didn't warn you." He retrieved an M24 from the secure locker, a well-maintained rifle in 7.62 by 51mm NATO caliber with a loopholed scope. "You'll need to sign these liability waivers acknowledging that—" "I'm familiar with liability waivers," Stella said, signing quickly. Other shooters in the facility had begun paying attention. A woman in yoga clothes wanting to shoot a serious precision rifle at extreme distance provided entertainment value. Stella ignored them completely. She took the M24, checked it professionally, chamber, action, scope mounts, and moved to outdoor lane 3. Fletcher followed, apparently determined to supervise what he expected to be an embarrassing failure. He set up a standard precision target at 1,200 yards and positioned himself behind a spotting scope. "Whenever you're ready to admit this is too much rifle," he said with barely concealed smirk, "just let me know." Stella set up her shooting position with practiced efficiency that came from 10,000 hours of training. Rifle, mounted on bipod, body positioned for optimal stability and recoil management, scope adjustments calculated instantly based on observed wind and temperature conditions. The wind was gusting from the east at 12 to 15 miles per hour, enough to significantly affect bullet trajectory at 1,200 yards. Temperature 68 degrees, humidity moderate. She made scope adjustments automatically. Fletcher watched her setup with growing confusion. Her position, her movements, her adjustments, everything suggested professional training far beyond what any hobbyist would possess. Stella controlled her breathing, acquired the target through her scope, and waited patiently for optimal wind conditions. When the gust pattern created a brief lull, she fired. The M24 recoiled against her shoulder, completely manageable, zero adjustment needed. Fletcher checked his spotting scope. His confident expression vanished. "That's dead center bullseye at 1,200 yards. Stella worked the bolt smoothly, chambering another round. She acquired the target again, waited for wind, fired. "Another perfect center hit," Fletcher reported, his voice now carrying confusion rather than condescension. "You're shooting a 2-inch group at 1,200 yards. She fired her third shot, fourth, fifth. Each bullet impacted within a 3-inch circle at 1,200 yards, precision that represented the absolute peak of human and equipment capability. Fletcher stared through his spotting scope in disbelief. "How are you doing this?" "That's professional level. No, that's elite level precision shooting. Where did you learn?" "She learned," a commanding voice interrupted from behind them. "Because she's been my personal security sniper for 5 years, during special operations that you'll never hear about in any briefing." Lieutenant General Marcus Reeves, wearing his Army service uniform with 3 silver stars on his shoulders, walked onto the range with the presence that came from commanding thousands of soldiers in combat. Fletcher's face went pale. "General, sir, I didn't know she was... You didn't know because you made assumptions based on her gender and appearance rather than asking about her qualifications," Reeves said firmly. "Staff Sergeant Campbell has 42 confirmed kills during combat operations under conditions that would terrify most trained snipers." Reeves walked to where Stella stood, then did something that made every person on the range freeze. He came to attention and rendered a formal salute to a non-commissioned officer. Stella returned the salute professionally. Reeves held it for 3 full seconds before dropping his hand and turning to address Fletcher and the gathered audience. "What you just witnessed is some of the finest precision shooting in the United States military. Staff Sergeant Campbell has made shots at ranges exceeding 1,800 meters, eliminated high-value targets in urban environments, and saved my life on 5 separate occasions." He paused, then spoke the words that would define Stella's reputation. She never missed when it mattered. Not once in 5 years of the most dangerous operations this country conducts. When lives hung in the balance, when one bullet was the difference between success and catastrophic failure, she delivered. Every single time. Fletcher looked like he wanted to sink into the ground. "Sir, I apologize. I made assumptions." "You made prejudiced assumptions," Reeves corrected. "In combat, that gets people killed." Before Fletcher could respond, Reeves's phone buzzed urgently. He checked it, and his expression shifted instantly to operational focus. "Sergeant Campbell, I need to speak with you, now, privately." In Fletcher's office, Reeves activated security protocols on his phone before showing Stella encrypted imagery. "Terrorist organization has taken 8 American medical personnel hostage in a compound 40 kilometers outside an Allied capital," Reeves briefed. "Intelligence says they'll execute the hostages within 16 hours unless we meet demands we won't meet. We're mounting a rescue." He zoomed the satellite image. Hostages are in a ground-floor room, 4 armed guards inside with them. Clear sight lines from elevated positions 900 to 1,300 meters out. Any conventional assault gives guards time to execute prisoners before our forces reach them. Stella understood immediately. "You need simultaneous elimination of all 4 guards during breach, coordinated sniper fire." "Exactly. I have 2 excellent snipers en route, but I need a 3rd I trust absolutely when 8 American lives depend on perfect execution under maximum pressure." I need someone who never misses when it matters. I'm in. When do we move? Now. Aircraft is waiting. 3 hours later, Stella was on a different continent, meeting the other 2 snipers selected for the operation. Sergeant First Class Aaron Mitchell, a lean man with 20 combat kills across 4 deployments, assessed Stella professionally. General Reeves says you worked with him directly? 5 years as his personal sniper, 42 confirmed kills. Staff Sergeant David Park, a compact Korean-American with intelligent eyes, nodded respectfully. Impressive record. This operation will test all of us. 4 simultaneous shots through windows at over 900 meters with hostages positioned near our targets. 1 miss means dead Americans. Then we don't miss, Stella said simply. They spent 2 hours studying the target compound through satellite feeds and drone footage. 8 American medical workers, 5 women, 3 men, sat bound in a ground floor room. 4 guards with AK-47s maintained constant watch. The rescue plan was precise but brutal. When assault forces breached the compound entrance, 3 snipers had exactly 3 seconds to eliminate all 4 guards before they could execute hostages. Stella's assigned target was a guard near the eastern window, standing 4 feet from the nearest hostage. Her range, 1,240 meters. The shot would require threading her bullet through an 18-inch window opening while compensating for wind and ensuring 0 risk to hostages. They moved into position under darkness, establishing concealed shooting positions on elevated terrain overlooking the compound. Stella set up her custom M24, a rifle she'd used for 6 years, modified specifically for her shooting style. She knew its exact behavior at any distance. Through her scope, she could see her assigned target clearly. The guard appeared relaxed, occasionally glancing at the hostages with casual indifference that suggested he'd have no hesitation executing them if ordered. Mitchell's voice came through her earpiece. All snipers, confirm target acquisition. Campbell, target acquired. Mitchell, target acquired. Park, target acquired. Reeves's voice joined the net. Assault team ready. Snipers cleared to engage on my mark. 3-second window from breach. 8 American lives depend on perfect execution. Stella's heartbeat slowed to the rhythm she'd trained for a decade. Her breathing became controlled. Her mind entered the clarity that came from thousands of hours preparing for exactly this moment. Through her scope, she maintained her aim point, compensating for the 1,240-meter distance, the 8-mile-per-hour crosswind, and the downward angle. Breach in 5 or 4, 3, 2, 1, execute. The breaching charge detonated with thunderous explosion. All 4 guards turned toward the sound, creating the shooting window. Stella squeezed her trigger with smooth automatic pressure. The M24 recoiled. She immediately worked the bolt for follow-up. Through her scope, her bullet impacted precisely. Instant kill, 0 reaction time. Simultaneously, Mitchell's and Park's shots eliminated 2 more guards. But the 4th guard, Park's secondary target, had moved at the critical instant. Park's bullet hit the wall behind where he'd been. The 4th guard, realizing his team was under attack, began raising his AK-47 toward the nearest hostage. Stella's training took over. She acquired the 4th guard, unassigned target but immediate threat. He was moving. Angle was poor. Hostages were close. She made the shot anyway. Her bullet impacted the guard's head before he completed his movement. He dropped, weapon unfired. All targets down, Mitchell reported. Campbell eliminated 4th after my miss. Outstanding. The assault team burst into the room within 10 seconds, secured the 8 crying Americans, and began evacuation. Reeves, exceptional work. Mission success. All hostages safe. Campbell, that follow-up shot was the finest reactive precision I've witnessed. That's why I trust you. But intelligence intercepted communications, 30 enemy fighters approaching, responding to prevent extraction. Reeves, hostile reinforcements inbound, 6 minutes, assault team needs covering fire. Mitchell, sir, we have elevated positions covering approach routes. We can provide precision fire. Approved. Engage hostiles threatening extraction. What followed was 40 minutes of sustained combat that would later be analyzed in military academies as a textbook example of sniper effectiveness during hostile extraction. Stella, Mitchell, and Park positioned themselves to cover the three primary approach routes that enemy fighters would use. As groups of armed terrorists began arriving, moving tactically with clear intent to prevent the hostage evacuation, the three snipers began systematic elimination of threats. Stella engaged her first target at 1,150 meters, a fighter carrying an RPG launcher who was moving toward a position that would enable him to fire on the extraction vehicles. She eliminated him with a headshot before he could establish his firing position, preventing what could have been a catastrophic attack on the departing Americans. Her second target was a machine gunner attempting to set up a PKM on a rooftop that would provide devastating fields of fire on the evacuation route. She eliminated him at 980 meters with a shot that required compensating for his movement and the increasing wind as thermal conditions changed with approaching dawn. She continued methodically, each shot carefully aimed to eliminate immediate threats while conserving ammunition and maintaining the security of her concealed position. The approaching enemy fighters became increasingly disorganized and hesitant as their numbers steadily decreased through precision fire they couldn't locate or effectively counter. Mitchell and Park were conducting similar operations on their assigned sectors, creating a defensive perimeter of coordinated long-range fire that prevented hostile forces from effectively engaging the evacuation or threatening the rescued hostages. Through her scope, Stella watched enemy fighters begin to retreat and take cover rather than continue their advance. The psychological impact of watching their comrades drop from invisible precision fire was breaking their will to continue the attack. After 40 minutes of sustained engagement, Reeves's voice came through the tactical network. All sniper elements, assault team reports, all hostages safely loaded in armored vehicles and moving to secure extraction point. Hostile forces are breaking contact and withdrawing. Outstanding work by all sniper elements. Begin your own extraction procedures. The three snipers conducted tactical withdrawal from their firing positions to the designated extraction point, where special operations helicopters we were waiting to pull them out of hostile territory. As Stella boarded her aircraft, she conducted a mental accounting of the operation. 15 total targets eliminated. The initial assigned guard, the critical fourth guard whose elimination had prevented hostage executions, and 13 enemy fighters during the covering operation. When they returned to the forward operating base, General Reeves was waiting at the landing zone with an expression that combined professional satisfaction and personal gratitude. "Campbell, Mitchell, Park," Reeves said formally, rendering a salute that all three returned. "What you accomplished tonight represents Special Operations Snipercraft at its absolute finest. 4 initial targets eliminated in coordinated fire with 1 critical follow-up correction, followed by 40 minutes of sustained precision engagement that enabled safe extraction of 8 American hostages." He looked directly at Stella. "This morning a rangemaster told you precision rifles were too much for you. Tonight you made shots that most military snipers would consider impossible. You've added 15 confirmed eliminations to your record, total now 57, with perfect accuracy on every priority target." Reeves paused before continuing. "But what makes you exceptional isn't the number. It's that you never missed when it mattered. When that fourth guard moved and created an immediate threat to execute hostages, you had perhaps 1 second to acquire a moving target at 1,200 meters and make a perfect shot with American civilians positioned dangerously close. Most snipers would have hesitated. You made the shot because you've spent 10 years training for exactly those impossible moments when there's zero time for doubt and lives depend on instant perfect execution." 6 months after the hostage rescue operation, Stella was promoted to Sergeant First Class and offered the position of senior instructor at the United States Army Sniper School, the premier facility that trained military precision marksmen. On her first day, addressing a new class of sniper candidates, she stood before soldiers who'd been carefully selected based on demonstrated shooting and assessed potential. "I'm Sergeant First Class Stella Campbell," she began. "For 10 years, I've been a special operations sniper with 57 confirmed kills across multiple combat deployments. I've conducted precision shooting at extreme ranges, eliminated high-value targets in complex environments, and provided personal security for senior commanders during the most dangerous missions our military conducts. She made eye contact with students throughout the room, noting the diverse composition that included approximately 30% female soldiers. Some of you may have heard stories about me. Some are probably exaggerated. But here's what's absolutely true. I never missed when it mattered, not once in 10 years of combat operations. When lives hung in the balance, when mission success depended on one bullet hitting its target, when conditions were impossible and other snipers would have refused the shot, I delivered every single time. Over the coming months, I'm going to teach you how to achieve that same level of consistent performance under extreme pressure. A young female soldier near the front raised her hand tentatively. Sergeant Campbell, during your career, did you face people who didn't think you could do this job because you're a woman? Stella smiled slightly, remembering Thomas Fletcher and countless similar encounters. Constantly. Throughout my entire career, I've been told that women don't belong near precision rifles, that we lack the physical strength or mental discipline or patience required for sniper operations. I've been dismissed and underestimated, and assumed to be less capable based purely on my gender rather than my demonstrated performance record. She let that acknowledgement settle before continuing. And here's what I learned through extensive experience. Those assumptions and prejudices reveal absolutely nothing about our actual capabilities and everything about the severe limitations of the people making those assumptions. The target at 1,500 meters doesn't care about your gender. The mission that requires eliminating a threat to prevent American casualties doesn't care what assumptions people made about you. What matters, the only thing that ultimately, truly matters in this profession, is whether you can make the required shot when everything depends on it. Training continued over the following intense months, and Stella watched her students gradually transform from capable shooters with potential into precision marksmen who could perform effectively under conditions that would paralyze untrained personnel. She taught them essential technical skills, ballistics calculations, environmental compensation, equipment maintenance. But more importantly, she taught them the critical mental disciplines that separated competent snipers from exceptional ones: how to perform flawlessly under extreme psychological pressure, how to maintain perfect focus when distractions were overwhelming, how to execute fundamental techniques with absolute precision when natural stress responses would make most people's performance collapse. During the final qualification exercise, Stella observed Private First Class Rachel Martinez, the young woman who'd asked about facing prejudice, conducting her critical qualification shot, 1,100 meters, variable wind conditions, 2-minute time limit. Martinez had struggled during early training not with technical capability, but with confidence, working harder to overcome internal doubts than to master the physical aspects of precision shooting. But through months of intensive training and Stella's consistent mentorship, Martinez had developed into one of the strongest, most reliable shooters in the class. Stella watched through her instructor's spotting scope as Martinez settled into her shooting position with practiced efficiency, controlled her breathing using techniques they had drilled hundreds of times, and waited patiently for optimal wind conditions despite the time pressure. With 30 seconds remaining, Martinez fired. Perfect bullseye at 1,100 meters, qualification complete. As Martinez stood from her shooting position, Stella saw reflected in the young soldier's expression the same transformation she'd personally experienced years earlier. The confidence of knowing you can perform when it matters, the satisfaction of proving capability despite doubts, and the determination to never let assumptions limit your potential. 5 years after the shooting range incident that had crystallized her reputation, Master Sergeant Stella Campbell, now serving as Senior Enlisted Advisor for all Army sniper training programs, received an unexpected visitor at her Fort Benning office. Thomas Fletcher appeared, looking nervous but determined, carrying obvious guilt about an encounter that had occurred half a decade earlier. "Sergeant Campbell," he began, his voice carrying genuine remorse, "I owe you an apology that's 5 years overdue. I made ignorant, prejudiced assumptions based on your gender and appearance, and I'm deeply ashamed of how I treated you that morning at my facility." Stella studied him carefully, recognizing that people could genuinely change when confronted with undeniable evidence that their assumptions were catastrophically wrong. "I appreciate you coming here to say that, Mr. Fletcher. That takes courage. I've spent the past 5 years trying to become a better person and a better instructor," Fletcher continued earnestly. "I closed my old facility and now work as an assistant instructor at a range that specifically focuses on teaching female shooters and breaking down the exact prejudices I demonstrated that day. I tell them about you, about the morning I dismissed one of the finest precision shooters in military history, because I couldn't see past my own ignorant assumptions about gender and capability." He paused, gathering courage to continue. "I tell that story to every class I teach, because it's the perfect, undeniable example of how assumptions based on gender reveal absolutely nothing about actual capability and everything about the person making those assumptions. I was completely, embarrassingly, dangerously wrong about you. And I've dedicated the remainder of my career to ensuring that other instructors don't make the same prejudiced mistakes I made." Stella nodded with genuine respect for his transformation. "That's good, Mr. Fletcher. The more people who understand that message and actively work to change the culture, the fewer future shooters will have to face the same prejudices and prove themselves against the same ignorant assumptions." Fletcher hesitated before adding, "Sergeant Campbell, if you ever want to come shoot at my new facility, you would be genuinely welcome. And I promise you'll be treated with the complete respect that your extraordinary capabilities and your distinguished service have unquestionably earned." Stella smiled slightly. "I might take you up on that offer someday, Mr. Fletcher. But I should warn you, I'm still going to request the M24 and access to your longest range lanes. And I will personally set up targets at whatever distance you request," Fletcher replied with profound respect and humility, "knowing that I'm setting them up for one of the finest precision shooters in modern military history. 15 years after joining the United States Army as a young soldier with exceptional natural shooting talent, Sergeant Major Stella Campbell had fundamentally transformed not just her own remarkable career, but the entire organizational culture surrounding military precision shooting and the assessment of human capabilities based on performance rather than prejudiced assumptions. Her personal operational record remained completely unmatched throughout the military. 57 confirmed eliminations during combat operations with absolutely perfect accuracy on every single priority target. 0 missions failed due to missed shots or degraded performance under pressure. But her greatest and most enduring impact extended far beyond her own impressive individual achievements. Through her role as senior instructor and advisor, she'd personally trained or significantly influenced over 400 soldiers who subsequently conducted precision shooting operations in combat zones throughout the world. At an official ceremony honoring her 20 years of distinguished military service, Lieutenant General Marcus Reeves, now retired from active duty but attending specifically to recognize Stella's extraordinary contributions, spoke about her career with words that captured her essential impact. Stella Campbell never missed when it mattered most. That elegantly simple statement defines and summarizes 20 years of military service that fundamentally redefined what we understood about precision shooting capabilities, mental discipline under extreme stress, and the vast human potential that exists when we commit to judging people based on demonstrated performance rather than prejudiced assumptions about gender or appearance. He continued, "She personally saved numerous American lives through exceptional shooting under impossible conditions. She trained multiple generations of precision marksmen who carried her invaluable lessons into combat worldwide. And perhaps most importantly, she conclusively proved through 2 decades of perfect performance that excellence in even the most physically and mentally demanding military specialties transcends every assumption people reflexively make based on gender." Lieutenant General Reeves concluded, 20 years ago, a civilian shooting range master looked at Stella Campbell and told her that precision rifles were too much for her to handle. Tonight we're honoring a career that definitively proved that assumptions about human limitations based on prejudice rather than evidence are simply obstacles that truly exceptional people overcome through perfect performance when everything depends on their execution. The audience, including hundreds of snipers she'd trained, commanders whose operations she'd supported, and fellow soldiers who understood exactly how difficult her record had been to achieve, gave her a standing ovation that lasted several minutes. Among the attendees was Thomas Fletcher, who traveled specifically to witness the recognition of the sniper whose capabilities he'd once dismissed so completely. And standing prominently in the front row was Sergeant Rachel Martinez, recently returned from a deployment where her precision shooting had saved American hostages during a rescue operation remarkably similar to Stella's mission years earlier. Martinez approached Stella after the ceremony with obvious emotion and gratitude. "Sergeant Major, when those hostages' lives depended on my shot, I remembered everything you taught us. I acknowledged the pressure but didn't let it control me. I returned to fundamentals. I trusted my training. I was patient even when every instinct screamed to shoot immediately. And when the moment was perfect, I made the shot. Just like you taught us, just like you've done for 20 years. Stella felt the profound professional satisfaction that came from knowing her influence extended far beyond her own shooting record. "Martinez, you made that shot because you had the discipline and training to perform under extreme pressure. I just helped you recognize and develop capabilities you already possessed." "No, Sergeant Major," Martinez replied with absolute certainty. "You showed me that being a female sniper isn't about proving we can do what men can do. It's about proving that excellence in this profession has absolutely nothing to do with gender. You taught me that the best response to prejudice isn't argument or debate, it's undeniable performance. And you demonstrated through 20 years of perfect execution that the most important shot isn't necessarily the longest or the most technically difficult. It's the one you make when lives depend on it, when failure isn't acceptable, when everything hangs in the balance." Stella Campbell had never missed when it mattered. Through 2 decades of absolutely flawless execution under extreme pressure, she'd proved beyond any possible doubt that capability needs no defense beyond results, that prejudice becomes completely irrelevant when performance is consistently perfect, and that the most powerful response to being underestimated is simply making the shot when absolutely everything depends on it. Her legacy wasn't just 57 confirmed eliminations or hundreds of successfully trained snipers or 20 years of distinguished service. Her legacy was conclusively proving that excellence transcends every assumption people make based on gender, appearance, or any characteristic, except the only one that truly matters: demonstrated capability under the conditions that define success in the profession. And years later, when young female soldiers entered Army Sniper School, they did so in a military that had learned, through Stella Campbell's perfect performance under impossible conditions over 2 decades, that the most dangerous and capable person in any operation might very well be the quiet woman everyone initially underestimated, until she makes the shot that changes everything forever. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, you can subscribe to see more incredible stories like this one.